Chapter 6. The Place Where Everyone Has to Go. In the dream, one can truly go anywhere, yet there are realms in the self in which dreamers often find themselves waking up into. The dreamers who are reading this work have no doubt woken into an earthly realm and have become accustomed to doing so. The power of the manifest reality is something to behold, and by the prime force there exists higher realms of majesty and splendor, countless earthly realms similar in nature to our own, and worlds below that give testimony to the darkest reaches of the mind. The first of these realms that I will describe is that which sits on the exterior of highest worlds. Those who live there call it the place where everyone has to go. Why they refer to it as such will be understood as the reader continues. It is that place that knows no decay or degeneration. It is an unlimited expanse, a world with unlimited worlds and beings within. It is that realm to which the pious go after quitting their temporary dwellings. Those that reside there also refer to it as the perfect world. They do so because of the consciousness that the realm is saturated with, and the nature of the happiness that is present there. In that place, everything that one can think of is preserved. Everything is present there. All forms in that realm are eternal and beyond destruction. If you own something, you may hold on to it forever. If you love someone, you may love them without the heartbreaking separations that are typical of the temporary worlds. The capacity to express and treasure the contents of the heart in that place is so vast that it is a world of such tender variety and sentimentality. Not only are objects preserved, but people also. Any being that had existed and passed from the world in which you knew them will, in course of time, end up in that place. Even the past incarnations of one dreamer have separate existences, such that one may sit down and converse with 3 lives past, if one wished. The place where everyone has to go does not suffer dissolution at any time, but rather stays as if awake for eternity. While this is true, it does cycle through ages and eons, such that the quality of the people, the places, pastimes, and culture continuously changes. The realm is always undergoing evolution of sorts, as people come and go from that place. Who and what the people of that world love changes, albeit on longer scales of time than we may be used to, yet they do change such that movements in thought and activity are constant. The beings who reside in that place are living embodiments of the wakefulness and happiness of the self. They could be said to be the bright one incarnate, beauteous of form, manner, character, and morality. They are the pious among all who dream. They believe that reality, the self, is of the nature of happiness, and consequently that the very purpose of life is to be happy forever. But further to this, they do not simply desire to be happy themselves, but to make others happy as well. Because of this, they can so very often be found in merrymaking and relishing celebrations of the happiness of the self. Festivals and gatherings of joy abound in that realm, and much energy is poured into expressing the happiness of being. Their existence is incredibly subtle in many fascinating ways. Firstly, they do have bodies that they use to interact with the realm around them and with others, but it is of a very subtle nature. Both the body and the world in which the body appears, both of these are of the same fine nature. They are aware of the body, that is, they know they are embodied in a certain sense, yet they barely feel the body at all. Its experience contributes so little to their mental space that it is so easily lost in absorption in other things. Whereas in the worlds below, especially on the earths, the body idea stands as a stone so hard to shift in the life of man. So much is this, so that people of that place cannot bear to think of things of a gross nature. People hurting one another, harsh argumentation, gorging on food, and so forth. Being united with these experiences through seeing them or talking about them is very uncomfortable for them. This subtle body affords them many things and has capacities that are very fine. For example, a being of that place can look at another being and see him internally to the point where he can see another digesting food or the scars of internal damage that would be impossible to perceive with the naked eye. Another peculiarity is that they can take the feeling of another simply by touching them, particularly on the feet, so that one may say, "Come touch this man. The feeling coming off of him is amazing." And so he would, and in that way he would be able to share his internal state easily. Contrarily, it could also be said, "This man feels awful, don't touch him." It is that way with feelings of a dense and low nature that the people of that realm avoid intensely. When the body is felt, the sensation in it is also quite different. The strongest sensations we may be used to, whether desirable or undesirable, are not felt in the same way or to the same degree. As an example, to be punched across the face is but a slight knock to them. Taking this idea further, to be stabbed through the eye, an utterly intense sensation of pain on earth, is only a stinging sensation, although they would still not invite this on themselves. To fall far from the sky and strike the ground is more embarrassing than it is painful in that place. The real distinguishing feature in this regard is that their subtle forms and the subtle world around them means that they have enormous amounts of energy. This allows them to perform activities for very long periods of time without exhaustion or boredom, whilst a man and his friend on an earthly world, even if they be the closest of companions that have not seen each other for some decades, may struggle to hold conversation for one day. The beings of the place where everyone has to go would not at all struggle to do so. This energy does not only allow them to do things for long periods, it also means that they can think and move incredibly quickly, to the point where, if we were to do so, we would not doubt think ourselves ill, and find any means to slow down. The environment that they are in, and the way in which they live, means that they can move very quickly, without difficulty. The beings of that world truly believe in the idea that you can be whatever you want to be. They disdain any restricting notions or stagnation in the life of the individual. If someone is caught in a place where they simply are not someone or something they want to be, there will be many willing to remind them of their own freedom, and that they need not be anything that they do not want to be. In this way, the variety of expressions of character in that place is phenomenal, with beings never stagnating in their own purpose or identity. The way that these people name themselves and refer to each other is far from conventional. Whilst they do have names in the sense that we are used to, they prefer not to use them. Instead, they refer to one another using contextual descriptions. For example, the name often portrays an attribute that is felt to be essential to the character of the being, such as the one who can save anyone, or the one who always gets people what they need. On the other hand, many like to be referred to by one of the attributes of the one, such as the one who can do anything, or the one who can say anything. This is more common among the higher beings of that realm, but the convention is widespread. This concept is even more interesting in the context of intimate relationships. You see, it is not as if beings there have but one name. Instead, they may have many names, depending on who is referring to them. A wife, in reference to her husband, may be known as the one who tells you things you want to hear, and this may even be extended on occasion to the one who tells you things you want to hear and never tells you things you don't want to hear. In this way, the name that is used is not simply a personal identifier, but rather it is a special title that denotes something that the wielder is attached to in regards to their relationship. In that example, the wife would always want to tell her husband things he wanted to hear and would avoid telling him things he didn't want to hear. Thus, the sentiment of the name remains true. Another example of such a name is the one who always gets you what you want. Again, a certain degree of work would be required to maintain this title, but if it is done, then this special name becomes an ornament of their loving relationship. Outside of this convention, the people of the place that everyone has to go will use a short name as an identifier such as we are familiar with, a first name, in situations where it would be nearly impossible to identify someone without it. The reader may wonder why it is that these names, both for persons and even the name of the realm, are so long in comparison to what he is used to. This is due to what was said above, namely that these beings are moving so quickly and with so little mental effort that to say the place where everyone has to go, or a common name of the one such as the one who always gets what he wants and never gets anything he doesn't want, is not taxing in the same way that it may be for us. There are other advantages to this naming convention, but they will become more evident later in this work. The Endless are a class of beings in the place where everyone has to go, that serve an exalted role. There are 3 groups among them known as the Creators, the Preservers, and the Destroyers. In the hierarchy of those who reside in the place, these beings sit above the other inhabitants and rule over them. All of these beings are known for their piety, their wisdom, their power, and their majesty. As with the worlds within that realm, there are unlimited numbers of these beings, and each rules in a section, as it were, of that place. They are also very prestigious and very famous among their peers, and in the realm at large. They are known as the Endless, because they are the immortals, and each of them is truly without end. They are the ones who set the culture of the realm. All look to them, not only as their celebrities, as each has a great reputation built over many ages, but also as their lawgivers, custodians, and judges. They are the high-minded of the high-minded, and are the wellspring of knowledge and experience of reality, which is the cornerstone of life in the perfect world. Among the Endless, the Creators are supreme, the most powerful of which can create worlds to specification in the middle of a conversation. They are the ones that build what others cannot, be it a world of pleasure gardens or shopping malls. They are the beings who expand the place where everyone has to go and are revered for it. When they are not building, they use their immense power and energy to research the nature of the self, delving into the consciousness of the 3 states of waking, dream sleep, and deep sleep. They are particularly fascinated with the net of being, its form, how it can be seen, and its relationship to the ultimate nature of reality. Because of their position, they see themselves somewhat as the policemen of the perfect world, and, mounting their enormous carriers, they travel across the realm, sometimes involving themselves in the affairs of less powerful beings. Most of the Creators are not much liked by the majority of that place, as they think of them as being arrogant and puffed on account of their position, and of their learning in regards to the self. For this reason, many Creators do not maintain many close friendships, even with the other Endless, sometimes being left alone in their perceived haughtiness. Regardless, they are often called upon to do what others cannot, whether it is reigning in a wayward being or building something grand and new for the enjoyment of the realm at large. The personal worlds of the Creators are immensely opulent and are a testament to the skill and power of their builder. They are where Creators hold court with their followers, and where they live from age to age. The average inhabitant of the place where everyone has to go would be very hard-pressed to get an interview with a Creator, and certainly could not walk into such a place expecting an audience. To bring one of these beings to where you need them, you need another Endless who knows them personally to call on them to help you. The statements I am making regarding the character of the Endless and their different categories are general in nature. There are those, as in all things, that buck the trend of the group and are generally different from these characterizations. But I give these so that the reader may understand the Endless, who they are, and the sentiments regarding them in a general way. The second class of the Endless are known as the Preservers. They differ quite substantially in their nature to that of the Creators. Firstly, they are oriented heavily towards working for the welfare of others, both in that realm and in other realms as well. So much, in fact, that they detest doing even a single thing for themselves. Ideally, every hour of their life would be spent in the service of others. That is how they feel. The Preservers are the second most powerful group of the Endless. They can often be found in their opulent worlds, dressed lavishly, whether they are working or lunching. They are often surrounded by many of their intensely devoted and adoring followers. Whilst they may not build entire worlds, they do many other wonderful things in that place to help others and to preserve. Helping people who have been stranded, building homes and such like for beings, organizing the endless, moving things from one place to another and taking people home, that is, from temporary worlds back to the place where everyone has to go, are but a few examples. I'll briefly digress here to describe what is meant by taking people home. When a person leaves the body at the end of an incarnation, beings such as the preservers are very particular about the state of mind of the person as they are leaving. Their aim is that the dreamer may have absolutely no desires left at that time, not even for a glass of water, and that the dreamer feels the best that they possibly can. So good, in fact, that they feel like everything is going to be amazing forever, and most importantly, that they are coming home. They, and many like them, believe that even wayward thoughts of the lower worlds, and even the earths, can have a dramatic effect on where the dream will go. To combat this, such beings surround the person who is about to leave, and tell them the most beautiful and comforting things that could be heard, as well as by subtly affecting them, they give them the best feelings imaginable. They can even go so far as to pull the subtle body, either gently or very rapidly, out of the body through the top of the head. Their aim is to grab the subtle body and place it on a celestial plane and bring it into their world. This is something the preservers and others like them do well and pride themselves on doing so. The last category of the endless are the destroyers. They are the least powerful of the three groups, although not to a great degree. Their focus is centered on using their power and energy to destroy for the greater good. I mean this in two senses. In the first, the destroyers are called upon to destroy temporary worlds, such as the lower worlds and the earths, when their usefulness has run its course. In the same way, they can also destroy creations in the perfect world that others cannot get rid of. It does sometimes happen that one being uses a great percentage of his own power to construct something, but then is not himself able to move or destroy it. Or he has something built for himself, but then the builder does not want to, or is not around to destroy it. Hence the need of a destroyer. In a higher sense, they use their vast knowledge of the self to destroy ignorance, being called upon to destroy the misguided or incomplete ideas and convictions of others, thereby bringing them to the truth of reality. They are often not partial to opulence, whether in location or dress, and instead prefer worlds of austerity, such as cold mountains or natural forests. In company with their followers, or wandering alone. To take a place among the endless, one must build for himself a great deal of merit. Each of the endless earned his place by meritorious action over many lifetimes, and often, at a particular point, decided to orient his endeavors specifically to achieve the status of becoming an endless. Ultimately, a dreamer, if he desires this, must shape his being and use his ability to be whatever he wants to be, to change himself into an endless, be it a creator, a preserver, or a destroyer. At a particular point, he will have become so much like one of them in every respect that it is in knowledge, power, energy, influence, and opulence that he will return to the place where everyone has to go as one of the endless. He will be recognized by his peers as such, and thus take his place in one of the three groups. While you may assume that one would endeavor for such a position based solely on high-minded ideals, this is not always the case. Some dreamers reach a level beneath the endless and simply desire the respect that is offered these beings, and thus they work to reach parity with them. Others are more enamored by the trappings of their life and desire also to enjoy them. There are those beings who have reached the level of which I am speaking. Some have even gone a degree further, but they do not want to be seen as one of the three types of beings. Rather, they prefer to be considered as unique and not within the hierarchy of the endless. They purposely talk, act, and dress unlike any other beings, such that they strike themselves apart. These beings, though they are revered, as some are even more powerful than many creators, are not seen well by the greater populace. This is an extension of the sentiment given to the creators. They see these beings as being haughty and above their station for the way in which they view themselves. Regardless, a dreamer, upon reaching such a level, may go this way if it pleases him. Merit is the measure of attainment in that place, and it is the treasure of the highest realms. It is the currency of the perfect world. It is referred to as money, and in appearance it resembles gold coinage, much like pieces of 8 or gold sovereigns. For example, if you desired a new carpet for your bedroom and could not build it yourself, you would have to pay for it from someone else. Living and working in thought, word, or deed for the welfare of the self is the means to acquire merit, whilst the opposite, that is, living and working for the satisfaction of the individual, depletes one's money, even to the degree of just thinking of sex indulgence slowly eats at one's wealth. The merit that one acquires is constantly accounted for, whether one is aware of it or not. If it increases, then one becomes richer, and vice versa. This money is stored in the heart of the dreamer's home. For example, in the world of a creator, it may be in a treasure room or vault, designed specifically for storing his money, whilst for another less powerful being, it may be in a small chest in his bedroom. A resident of the place where everyone has to go has the luxury of being able to check and account for his money in real time, seeing it increase or decrease before him. Whereas a dreamer on an earthly world has to wait until he returns to that realm. At that point, the accrued merit, or lack thereof, will affect his balance of money. Even those in the perfect world cannot see the results of an incarnation until the dreamer returns, at which point the results of his life are plain to see. Sometimes it is ambiguous whether an action, word, or thought is meritorious or not. In this case, if you live in the perfect world, you can complete the work and quickly jump home to see the effect of your action on your wealth, and thus surmise its worthiness. Money is used for many things in that realm, and its economy thrives. Everything from transport to other realms, building worlds, doing favours, buying furniture, to being paid wages. All is done through this currency based on merit. There are a few peculiarities regarding money, and the sentiments of being around it. Firstly, you cannot take another's money. Nobody can come into your home and steal your money. It simply cannot be done. Only the owner, as it were, of the money is able to take it from its place and use it. This also means that if I were to send someone on a plane from one realm to another, but I didn't have the money on me, I couldn't say to the passenger, "Oh, just take the fee from my treasure room when you get there." They would have to pay themselves, or I would have to get the money and pay the pilot. Where it can lead to situations like the one described because of its backing of merit, it would undermine its purpose if it were transferable in this way. The endless are enormously wealthy for the most part. The sheer merit required to join their ranks is far beyond the average person's attainment. The populace writ large is wealthy to the degree that one would expect, some with more and some with less, some with more salubrious spending habits, and others who live more frugally. All this comes with the twist of a merit-based currency that settles in real time. Another peculiarity is that, say a man lives with his wife in the same home, only the husband would have money. The money of the home is considered to be the husband's, and the wife would not be able to take it out, nor would she have a cache of her own money. This is due to the nature of the relationship between the being of the husband and the being of the wife, which I will expand on further in this work. As in earthly realms, some people of that place heavily attach themselves to money. They boast of their fortune, lord it over others, and covet the wealth of others richer than themselves. The irony is that such thinking actually costs them money. Some of the wealthiest compete with their personal fortunes and desire to be the richest man or woman in the self. Conversely, there are those that, through their conduct or spending, fall to a low ebb and simply need more money. In this case, the best option is often to take birth on an earth, perform meritorious actions throughout, and hope for a large deposit of gold at the end of the life. As the reader must have already surmised, the Endless each have their own personal worlds. These worlds are of their own construction and are in many ways an extension of their being. They are saturated with the character of their owner, from the architecture to the fashion to the behavior of the man on the street, being as they are under their own lordship and creative control. Some worlds are so grand that they are famous in their own right, and powerful beings vie for who rules the greatest world in the realm. Because these worlds are so intimately united with their lord, they cannot be destroyed by anyone else. Even if all the Endless band together, they cannot dissolve such a world without the permission of its owner. These worlds can, however, be molested in other ways. Beings can travel to worlds and wreak mild havoc by destroying lesser creations, such as buildings, infrastructure, vehicles, and so forth. Interestingly, if the owner becomes bereft of money, then the world will begin to deteriorate, and finally will fall into non-existence. Most inhabitants of that place are not themselves wealthy enough to lord over a world of their own. In their case, most often, people simply choose to live in the world of that being whom they adore the most, worshipping them and living in the company of those who do the same. They build a deep relationship with that being, finding themselves in pleasant and like-minded company, and there being no shortage of vacancies, they either buy or build a house in that world and turn it into a home. Whilst most beings live in this way for the majority of the time, the conditions of that place mean that there is nothing stopping them from jumping to a nice area, maybe somewhere far away, where few have been before, building a small dwelling and residing there for some time instead. To a further extreme, there are those who, by nature, shy from or shun the company of others, and therefore take themselves far away, to places that no one has ever been, and where they will by no means cross paths with others. There they make a home and live. In this way, the means of habitation are very malleable. On the one hand, a person may live in a close-knit community of beings of a very similar nature, or he may walk completely alone, and both without too much difficulty. I have said much regarding the lives of the great and powerful Endless, but little about those of the greater multitude. The heart of life in the perfect world is experiencing the happiness of reality, yet how this is expressed is fascinating. Many people in that place take an occupation simply for pleasure's sake, from being a librarian to working in a store selling shoes, to waiting on the realm's royalty, to even working in the sewers. Men and women occupy themselves in very familiar ways. Because of the atmosphere of the place where everyone has to go, satisfaction in such a way of life is far greater than on earth. People enjoy working with others, having the freedom to come and go, and their downtime is again much more enjoyable. Beings happily walk through shopping malls and browse for clothing. They holiday with their family and they study any knowledge that their heart desires. The realm is rich with worlds created for their own enjoyment at the request of its residents. The average person could not create a world of, say, endless polo fields, but they most likely would be a part of a group that could bend the ear of a creator and have him build such a thing for them. Entertainment may be the largest industry in that place, and the desire for the most thrilling, heart-wrenching, or hilarious television shows and movies does not end with the Earth's. Neither does the love of music, both in performing and listening. Whatever occupies man, you need simply to imagine its expression expanded without limitation. The sheer depth of their minds lends them to expression in subtle ways, creation of thought objects, and displays that befuddle the imagination. Whilst their being and realm are very subtle, their pastimes settle on very familiar things, in which happiness is the key ingredient, being around people you love, and doing things you enjoy. Regarding sustenance, these beings eat very little, and what they do eat is bright, such as fruit. The hunger impulse is not associated with the maintenance of the body, as the body is not subject to death, either through starvation or dehydration. They eat because they want to and because it is enjoyable. But the desire to eat does not often arise, and is easily defeated. The essentials of living are really very simple. A man only needs a small dwelling and a single fruit tree, both of which he could build himself, and he can live anywhere. The situation with sleep is very similar. The people of that place sleep very little, with some foregoing it entirely, preferring their happy and comfortable waking life to sleep. The exhaustion that is the result of taxing the body and the mind is so minor and takes so long to accumulate that very little sleep is needed to alleviate it. One of the hallmarks of the place where everyone has to go is the deep and colourful loving relationships between its residents. In the atmosphere of happiness, many come together in intimate relationships, most commonly in what could only be termed eternal marriage. While many do seek a partner, there are also many more that return to that place to find that they never lost what they had. That is to say, they realize that who they shared their life with before departing was theirs eternally, and that their life has been a play with two lead characters and not one. The wives and husbands of many of the highest beings in that place are known to all, as they are seen as one being, and thus it is hard to talk of the one without the other. In this relationship, the man is seen as the being and the woman as the force. This is not mere concept, but the actual truth of their relationship, and when completely absorbed in this, it opens a channel into reality through the eyes of the male-female principle, the one and the goddess. Outside of this type of pairing, there is also much variety, with some beings foregoing intimate unions altogether, while some cannot seem to settle with anyone. Among the endless, polygamy is quite common. This is for two reasons. Firstly, the nature of the position is such that it attracts a great deal of attention and admiration. So much so that these beings in some ways may have whatever they desire, be it one wife or a million wives. Secondly, a highly elevated and powerful woman can expand herself into many parts that, while born of her, each has its own individuality. It is much like taking a part of the woman's personality and separating it from the being of origin and into its own personage without any loss to the source. With the power available in that realm, this can be done on an enormous scale, so that millions of such expansions may be born of one great woman. In the same way that there is competition for wealth, so too is there with women. Some endless see it as a symbol of their fame that they are able to bring so many women under their sway, and thus they compete with others in this fashion. It was said of one endless that he had so many women that he could not fit them in one photograph. Their unique naming convention can also come into play in relationships. While there may be tender names unique to the nature of their intimacy, a couple may turn this on its head if the relationship begins to sour. Say that one name used is the one who always gets you what you want. If there is enmity or resentment, this may become the one who always got you what you want and never got anything back. Likewise, if there is a feeling that the relationship was never as strong as they had thought, or there has been a transgression, one might say, I am the one you never really cared about. In this way, how one addresses the other becomes an intriguing reflection of the relationship at any given time. Alongside all the sportive play of intimate relationships, the people of the place where everyone has to go also enjoy sex life with a few caveats. Due to the large amounts of energy available to them, they are able to sustain this kind of enjoyment for very long periods if they wish. Further to this, energy and power are not lost upon release of the vital fluid. Thus the enjoyment can continue until another engagement captures the attention. Having said so, the feeling through the senses is not gross but fine, and because of this the carnal pleasure is diminished somewhat. For this and other reasons, many people in relationships do not spend long periods in this sort of activity. In a setting of such peace and happiness, the impetus to share this happiness is very strong. Thus all kinds of festivities are favourite pastimes of these people. Communication and travel are instantaneous. There is more space than could ever be desired, and those in the mood to celebrate the joy of the self are without number. All of these taken together, one can only imagine the immensity, frequency, and creativity of these events. Most worlds of the endless are in celebrations of some kind constantly, or near constantly, either from the sincere desire of the lord of that world, or simply from him curtailing to public demand for such. Festivities are not the only events of great proportions that go on in that realm. There are many things that may draw a person away from what he was doing and go and join in the fun, be it a new world being created, a deep discourse on reality by a famous endless, or a powerful being going astray, though that is not very common. With such freedom, if something incredible is going on, it is not uncommon for those who are interested to park up in that corner of the realm and decide to camp out at the event. They need only build a small house and a fruit tree, and they could stay there for an age. This can quickly escalate, and soon people are building games to entertain each other, and before anyone knows it, a carnival atmosphere has been created. When the drama has passed, or the fun peters out, then the dwellings come down, and as quickly as it had appeared, the space is free and open again, with people returning to their daily lives. When these people are not busy working, playing, romancing, or in festivity, they are privy to going very deep into the mind, both of themselves and of others. Without the handicaps of a gross body, lack of time, or external discomforts, coupled with the consciousness that a fine body provides, the space for mental exploration is greatly expanded. One brilliant example of this is hypnosis. In this sense, hypnotizing another is wrapping one's mind around that of another, such that one has complete sight and often control of their thoughts. For example, one common form of hypnosis is taking everything that comes from the heart, being the origin of the mind, and adding something to it without additional effort. Say your train of thought is as follows. I'm so happy right now, this can't be real. I need to go home though. I hope this doesn't fall apart. This could become, if someone reads this train of thought and then reflects it back, what do you think about the one who is so happy right now? What do you think about the one who doesn't think this is real? What do you think about the one who thinks he needs to go home? What do you think about the one who is worried this is going to fall apart? In this way, the mind very quickly is turned back on the dreamer, and the hypnotizer adds a phrase to the mind flow. There are a few reasons to do this. Mostly, it is a game simply to see how far one can go with the mind of another. It can also be used to meditate or make another meditate on the one or the goddess. For example, what do you think about the one who can do anything? What do you think about the one who can see anything? What do you think about the one who always gets what he wants and never gets anything he doesn't want? And so on. This particular type of hypnosis can also be used to compare one person or thing with another and show the comparison to the subject. What do you think about the one who never does anything for himself? What do you think about the one who is always thinking about how to make himself feel better? Followed by, what do you think about the one who is always thinking about what he can do for others? This sort of thinking can shed an enormous amount of light on the shortcomings of a person and compare them with another or with an ideal. Finally, there are the ways in which hypnosis can be used to torment others. What follows is another example of comparative language, but with a different phrase and a different intention. In this set, the subject has the following thoughts. I hope everything is going to be okay. Do my friends actually like me? I hope they will be able to understand. If I left now, I wonder where I would go. This becomes through hypnosis. First, I'm going to make you think that everything is okay. And then I'm going to make you think that the world is going to come down around you. I'm going to make you think that your friends actually like you. And then I'm going to make you think that they actually despise you. I'm going to make you think you're going home. Then I'm going to make you think that you're going somewhere so bad nobody wants to think about it. In this instance, the hypnotizer has attached to this dark train of thought and manipulated both sides of its implication with the emphasis on the dark outcome. The word think can also be substituted with feel like for a similar effect. This form of thought manipulation, namely taking someone from one state of mind to another, is called changing the channel. It is mostly used for the good, in such situations where someone is in a difficult position and another changes their thoughts to bring them back to stability, peace, and happiness. This is a particular favorite pastime of the preservers, and many powerful beings are proud of their ability to change the channel of someone in distress. A short example of this kind is phrases such as, "Everything is going to be okay," "You are all right, there is nothing wrong with you," "You're the one, you're the one, you're the one." Said with conviction and from someone trusted, these thoughts can quickly turn the bent of someone's mind in a positive direction. Finally, there is a very simple form of changing channel, where the thought flow is replaced by a string of related concepts to draw the mind away from other things. For example, sitting on someone's mind and saying, aeroplane, bicycle, ferryboat, motorbike, hot air balloon. A series of ideas, all of the same category, can bring the mind into a neutral space, or can just be a fun game to play on others. There are two means of interworld transportation in the place where everyone has to go. The first and easiest is teleportation. There it is referred to as jumping. This is one of the first things that anyone returning to that realm will be taught. That is how important it is to life in that place. Jumping involves emptying the mind of the place where it stands and attaching it to another location. Jumping is not so difficult in that realm due to the subtle atmosphere, but it does require practice and energy to accomplish. Jumping is made easier if the location where one is jumping is very familiar. One can also jump to a person, and again, familiarity is helpful. As with many things, jumping becomes second nature to the people of that place. Jumping home is as easy as seeing it in the mind, and one is there, a swift and painless commute. Whilst moving about within a world rather than between worlds, the mind, and therefore the body, can be moved very rapidly and easily by flying or running at superhuman speed. The second means of transportation is a product of more investment. It is the use of a carrier, a personal transportation vehicle. A carrier is a vehicle that can fly and also jump between worlds, so that the owner does not have to. In a place where everyone can jump, the motivations for carrier ownership are generally not the abilities of the carrier, but rather a personal sentiment. For example, some of the carriers of the most powerful creators are enormous, and within them are situated entire palaces. In this instance, the carrier is not only a vehicle, but also a transparent display of opulence. To behold such a carrier arriving in your world is a magnificent sight, and there can be no doubt as to the status of its owner. Below this, there are many other wonderful carriers that can be purchased to add a certain flair to one's travels, such as motorbikes, swans, cars, and even horses. All of these carriers require different amounts of energy to run, and some, such as the palace carrier, will not even start without a large amount of energy. A horse carrier would require relatively little energy in comparison to operate, but more than the energy needed to jump. If one doesn't have the energy required to start his carrier, he may find himself in the embarrassing situation of being stranded. I will go further into this when I speak of energy and power later in this work. Jumping may be the first thing a new inhabitant learns, but building is surely the second. Without building, the place where everyone has to go would come to a standstill. Building is taking a mental image of an object and conjuring it into the world. Everything that one encounters in that realm was built by someone, from the creators, the greatest builders, to a man conjuring an apple to snack on. Very little is needed by anyone in that place, but the ability to create anything to specification in an instant is a highly sought-after skill. The limits of any person's ability to build is subject to their power and their imagination. A typical man would by no means be able to build a world for himself, but he would not struggle to construct an item of clothing from memory. Even though this is the case, the trade in conjured items is ubiquitous. This is because the imagination of any one person only goes so far. If he wants something new or something that is intricate, then he must go elsewhere to acquire it. There is no dearth of shops and markets for purchasing new and interesting goods, from shopping malls filled end to end with clothing stores to custom-crafted furniture. Anything that the heart desires may be bought in some corner of the realm. While many revel in buying new goods and furnishing their lives with them, there are those whose joy comes from building items for sale and becoming the best at their craft. As expertise in building is so valuable, the most skilled in this art are paid handsomely for their ability to build to scale or to exact specificity. There are those who specialize in the construction of the set pieces of worlds, such as buildings, landmarks, and the various expressions of nature. When an unfortunate Endless has suffered from some destructive vandalism, he would no doubt call upon these expert builders to recreate what was lost. And such builders are revered for their ability to create anything based simply on verbal description or mental imagery. In this atmosphere that does not know scarcity, the real value of objects comes from a sentimental source. You may have a very beautiful piece of jewelry with enough power, and by someone familiar enough with the object, it could be recreated, and thus it cannot be said to be very intrinsically valuable. Yet, if this piece of jewelry was given as a gift by a lover many ages ago, then, in that place, it would be extremely valuable. If something of that nature was destroyed, and even if it was replaced with an identical piece, it would be felt to be lost, as the replacement, though completely indistinguishable, would be bereft of all sentimental value. With this feeling, the joy in using the ability to build, to create anything that someone else desires, is the real jewel.